To go along with today's video on censorship in China is a sponsorship from NordVPN. A VPN so good that it can even bypass China's Great Firewall. For a limited time, you can go to nordvpn.com/censoredgaming and get a huge discount and use the code censoredgaming at checkout to get 4 bonus months free. I have used Nord for many years and it's great being able to access content from other regions at a click of a button. Nord has over 5,000 servers, fast speeds, and exclusive smart play tech, which further improves access. Using Nord also keeps your internet activity and data safe and private, with Nord's next generation encryption and audited no data logging policy. So go to nordvpn.com/censoredgaming or via the link in the description, use the code censoredgaming at checkout and get a huge discount and 4 months free with a 30-day money back guarantee. China is well known for its strict government censorship that extends to many areas of life for the Chinese population. Internet access, for example, is strictly limited and monitored, with this being referred to in the West as the Great Firewall of China. Censorship in China also extends to video games, which are very strictly regulated in the country. For instance, video game consoles were completely banned in China until early 2015. Following the ban being lifted, this then paved the way for companies like Nintendo to release their consoles in the country, with the official Chinese release of the Nintendo Switch coming in December 2019, nearly 3 years later than the rest of the world. However, the Chinese regulatory environment remains extremely strict. For games to be officially released in the country, games' content must first be evaluated and approved by the government. This approval process is infamous for having very long wait times, and there was also a complete freeze on new approvals in 2018, from March all the way until December. As reported by Bloomberg, the halt was due to a restructuring of power among departments, and that regulators have also been concerned about violence and gambling in some games. This regulatory environment means that despite the Nintendo Switch's official release in December 2019, only a handful of games have been approved for a release to go with it. And of the games that have currently been released, many of the most popular system-selling titles are missing, and this includes games such as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Animal Crossing New Horizons. However, it's extremely likely that Animal Crossing will never be released in China, just like it is for a number of other titles that most people would deem to be very child-friendly and appropriate. And in fact, Animal Crossing New Horizons has been de facto banned in the country since 2020. Super Mario Maker 2, another game that most would deem to be very child-friendly, has been de facto banned since 2020 as well. Both Animal Crossing and Super Mario Maker 2 had not been officially released in the country. However, due to the strict regulations and lack of official releases, most Chinese gamers will choose to purchase import copies from other regions. There is a huge market for gaming-related imports in China, with this being seen as a legal grey area. By large though, the Chinese government appears to overlook the import market, and crackdowns on it are quite rare, although they can happen from time to time. It is mainly only for the sale of very specific items where the government will intervene much more heavily, and this is precisely what has happened to Animal Crossing and Super Mario Maker. In June 2020, Super Mario Maker 2 was suddenly taken down all across e-commerce websites in China. As was reported across Chinese language media, a user had uploaded a Mario Maker level that was full of insults towards the Chinese president. The level was uploaded on May 28th by a user with the name 8964. Even just the user's name would be extremely controversial with the Chinese government. The 89 references the year 1989, while the 64 references June 4th. Put them together and you have June 4th, 1989, which is the date of the Tiananmen Square protests. According to Chinese Nintendo, a Twitter account that covers Nintendo in Chinese-speaking countries, a lot of the user-generated insults came from typos the Chinese president has made during speeches, as well as various popular nicknames. Over on the Chinese language version of Wikipedia, there is an article on controversies regarding the Chinese president, with an entire section revolving around speaking errors he has made. Here, there are numerous examples of him reading things incorrectly and mispronouncing words. This can sometimes mean him saying completely different words and phrases instead, and causing much hilarity amongst some of the Chinese population. There is also a Chinese language page for negative nicknames given to the president. While many people will likely be familiar with the popular Winnie the Pooh nickname he has, there are many others, such as Accelerator-in-Chief. Accelerator-in-Chief even has an English language entry, where it explains that the term became popular in 2020, and comes from the president's internal and foreign policies, which are seen as accelerating the eventual collapse of the Chinese Communist Party. It is contents like these that were being added to Super Mario Maker 2, leading to the government cracking down on it and pulling it from stores. The reasons for Animal Crossing's ban are very similar. Prior to the government intervening in April 2020, players had been uploading islands in the game featuring controversial content. The types of controversial content were varied, but one big source of trouble came from players creating islands to coincide with the real-life pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. This island, for example, comes from Hong Kong activist Joshua Wong, who is currently imprisoned for taking part in demonstrations in the country. The island features images of the Chinese president, as well as Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam. It also displays the activist slogan, "Free Hong Kong, Revolution Now." This slogan is now banned in Hong Kong, with the government announcing July 2nd, 2020, that anyone who uses the slogan can be prosecuted under the national security law that commenced a few days prior on June 30th. Aside from the content related to the Hong Kong protests, other controversial content that was being uploaded include, like Mario Maker, insults towards the president. However, there was also users uploading content related to the recent COVID-19 pandemic and featuring disparaging sentiments towards the Chinese government's handling of it. Animal Crossing New Horizons was a huge hit in China too. Despite not being officially released, it has been estimated that over 1 million import copies had been sold prior to the ban. Owing to its popularity, the game was being heavily discussed across Chinese social media. This, however, includes users taking screenshots and videos of the controversial content, and racking up millions of views, which likely accelerated the game's ban only a few weeks after release. On April 10th, the game was completely pulled across Chinese e-commerce platforms, and unlike Mario Party, all Animal Crossing related merchandise was forced to be taken down as well. Other measures that were taken by the Chinese government include removing the game's hashtag from Weibo, which is China's most popular social media platform, and the government also conducted big sweeps on many brick and mortar stores and confiscated any copies of the game that they could find, with this including even mom and pop stores. Meanwhile, from across the pond, the Premier of Taiwan commented on the matter on Facebook, saying they will not ban a game where you pick up tree branches and grow turnips, and that players should feel free to make fun of the government. However, even now, more than a year later, the only way to get your hands on the game in China is trading under the counter or buying a digital copy from another region. It has been argued across Chinese websites, however, that it seems impossible to prevent incidents like these from happening when it comes to games that allow user-generated content. And so, for any games that allow users to interact like this, they may very well also find themselves facing similar action. And another thing that has started to happen is developers becoming more cautious about this, and preemptively modifying Chinese versions of games. For instance, the Chinese version of Minecraft has banned text from in-game signs and books. While this puts a stop to incidents like Animal Crossing and Mario Party occurring, this type of heavy-handed approach has been severely criticized by fans. But with China now being the leading gaming market by revenue worldwide, game companies are becoming increasingly careful of the differing attitudes and regulations. Analysts also predict that China's market presence is set to continue to grow, with this largely being spearheaded by the Chinese tech giant Tencent. However, its strict laws and limits on freedom of expression can make penetrating this market an even greater challenge for foreign entities. As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and a big thanks once again to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. Until next time, thank you for watching.